true solemnly swear.
Now, Detective McLean, you testified during the state's case that you first got involved in this particular case when you received a call about a motorcyclist fleeing from a traffic stop, correct?
Yes, that was part of the case.
In actuality, was there another report made about the same suspect that you received prior to the traffic stop?
Yes.
Okay, and what was that?
We were responding to the area for people on dirt bikes pointing guns at road users.
And were you listening to the police radio, the sheriff's office radio at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And when all the deputies are in the same area, they're typically on the same police channel, correct?
Yes.
And they're sharing information with each other?
Yes.
And they often share information about suspects that they're looking for, correct?
Yes.
And did you hear a report over the radio from Deputy Kafinas?
Yes, I did.
And did you hear Deputy Kafinas say that he believed he had located the suspect of the earlier reported aggravated assault?
I don't recall specifically.
Do you remember there being radio traffic about locating a suspect of an aggravated assault?
I remember radio traffic regarding a suspect on a motorcycle matching the description that came in on the 911 line.
Do you remember if Deputy Kafinas was the one who made that transmission?
I don't recall specifically.
And that's fine. If you don't remember, you don't remember. Before you arrived at the Wawa, did you receive information over the radio from the Star Helicopter Unit?
Yes.
And did the Star Helicopter Unit direct you to a specific suspect?
Yes.
Did they direct you and all the other ground deputies to the specific suspect prior to Viagra at a specific gas pump?
Yes.
So the aviation unit directed you exactly where to go and who to detain.
Yes.
And at that time, had you received information that that suspect was the suspect of the earlier reported aggravated assault?
I had received information that that was the suspect on whom a traffic stop had been attempted.
And that he had fled from that stop?
Yes.
And so I don't want to keep being a dead horse. Do you just remember anything? Do you remember about the aggravated assault call? Because if you don't, that's fine. I can just move on.
I do, yes.
Okay. But do you remember whether you received any information about that particular suspect being the suspect of the aggravated assault who then fled from Deputy Kafinas?
Question asked and answered.
Sustained.
I'm just asking if he remembers, Judge, if he knows.
Okay.
Because I just asked if he did remember and he said yes, because I thought maybe he wouldn't.
Ask your question.
Okay. Did you receive information when you were being directed by the helicopter unit to that suspect, that was the suspect that had fled from Deputy Kafinas? Deputy Kafinas had announced matched the description of the earlier aggravated assault.
Objection compound.
Sustained.
Let's break it down a little bit. The Star Helicopter Unit directed you to that specific suspect, correct?
Correct.
And they had stated that was the suspect who fled from Deputy Kafinas.
Correct, yes.
And Deputy Kafinas had broadcast that the person who fled from his traffic stop matched the description of the person who committed the aggravated assault earlier.
And so I don't recall if Deputy Golfinus specified it that way, but I remember him calling out the traffic stop on the motorcycle and the driver.
And without remembering the exact words, generally speaking, was the information you received that that suspect at the Wawa was the suspect in the aggravated assault?
Generally speaking, it matched the color, the helmet, the general behavior of the person, people who were responding to the area for
And that's why the helicopter unit directed you to that specific person?
Ultimately, yes.
Based on those reports, did you believe that there was reasonable suspicion to detain him to investigate the aggravated assault?
Yes, I did.
And did you separately have a lawful reason to arrest him for separate crimes?
Yes.
When I say him, I'm referring to the suspect, Recto Bayerga.
Yes.
And did that include fleeing from Deputy Kafinas' traffic stop?
It did, yes.
When you arrived, did you arrive to assist Deputy Crawford in making a lawful arrest?
Yes.
Do law enforcement officers, sorry, let me reword that. Did you receive training, law enforcement training, on how to act when you're trying to detain a suspect that is accused of pulling a firearm at civilians?
Yes.
And how are you supposed to approach a subject like that, according to your training?
There are many different ways that you would approach somebody like that based upon the totality of the circumstances in which you find yourself, coupled with your training and experiences. I can't speak for how anybody else would approach that in that moment, but I arrived third to that scene.
And according to your training, are you taught to make any assumptions about whether such a suspect has a firearm or not?
Based upon the totality of circumstances, I would make a reasonable assumption in that moment.
Of what would that reasonable assumption be regarding whether such a suspect would have a firearm?
That there is a potential for danger, that they would have a firearm.
And so are you then trained to proceed as if that person does have a firearm?
Yes.
Now, after the fire was extinguished, was the suspect, Recto Bayerga, handcuffed?
Yes, he was.
And who handcuffed him?
It was my recruit.
And did you instruct them to place the handcuffs on Recto Bayerga?
Yes, I did.
And why did you do that?
To effect the arrest, to prevent him from fleeing any further, and to prevent him from hurting himself or others any further.
Did you believe it may be because you thought he still had a firearm?
Yes.
Based on your training and experience as a law enforcement officer, is it appropriate to grab a suspect accused of aggravated assault and fleeing from the police and take them to the ground to effectuate an arrest?
That's one way, yes.
And based on your training and experience, is it imperative to try to secure such a suspect before they have the chance to flee again?
Yes.
Is that because if they flee again, it'd be putting members of the public at risk on the roadways?
Yes.
No further questions, Judge.
I'm a little confused because I thought I heard you say that the only information you had from radio traffic was that the suspect at the Wawa had fled from Deputy Kafinas.
And the description of him was the same as the one that was described on the 911 call and relayed over the radio by the dispatchers.
So it's your belief that the description from the 911 call matched the description of the person at the Wawa?
That was relayed to us and that was available at the time.
And I think I heard you say that his helmet matched the description too.
That he was wearing a helmet. It was a blue motorcycle
Oh, just wearing a helmet.
with a dark shirt and shorts.
And because of that description that you say is in the radio traffic is why you did what you did.
Is why what, sorry?
Is why you did what you did that day. The way you responded to the scene.
The way that I responded to the scene was to prevent him from fleeing, from being alerted to my presence, and the sequence in which I arrived at the scene also played a part in the circumstances for me to act the way that I acted.
Do you remember hearing over the radio traffic that there were multiple motorcycles
I do, yes.
and that there were multiple descriptions of the suspect?
Yes, I do.
Was it ever clear to you which one of them had a firearm?
There were many people on the road.
So that means it was not clear to you which one of them had
Objection,
a
Your Honor, he's
firearm.
not letting the witness finish.
I thought he had stopped talking on him, but if he hadn't, did you have something to add, Mr. McLean?
I was going to add that one of the suspects was described to be riding a blue motorcycle, wearing a helmet.
Do you know, was there more than one person riding a blue motorcycle with a helmet that day?
There may have been, but with the traffic stop that was affected, that was attempted, and following that, the information from our STAR unit, it seemed reasonable based upon the totality and my trade, my experiences, that this would be the same person who initiated the 911 calls.
So just sort of, as long as it's close enough.
No, it was reasonably believed to me in that moment that it was one and the same person who had initiated the 911 calls.
And after you cuffed the suspect, you searched him, right?
Objection, Your Honor, misstating prior testimony. Your Honor, may we approach?
I'll restate it, if that's okay, Judge.
Sure.
After your training officer, trainee, cuffed the suspect, you searched him.
My trainee, I believe, searched him.
And what did you find?
Nothing.
That's all I have, Judge.
Briefly, Judge.
Go ahead, Mr. Buckley.
On what topic?
I'm gonna allow him.
To redirect.
Deputy McLean, when you're in the field, do you, as a law enforcement officer, have to rely on information known to you at the time when making decisions?
Yes, the information known to me, coupled with my training, my experiences, yeah.
And do you have to rely on information given to you by fellow law enforcement officers?
Yes.
Do you have to rely on other law enforcement officers identifying suspects?
Yes.
Are you trained that if a fellow law enforcement officer tells you they've identified the suspect of a crime, that you should detain or arrest that person?
Yes.
So you don't have to make all your own personal observations as an officer to make an arrest. You can rely on information from other officers.
Yes.
And there's nothing unusual about that. That's standard police work.
Correct, that we work together based on each other's experiences, observations, statements. Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Deputy.
Your Honor, the defense has no further witnesses. We would rest our case.
Okay, thank you. Did the state have a rebuttal witness they'd like to call?
We do, Your Honor. The state would call Detective Kayla Ruiz as a rebuttal witness.
You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
You may be seated.
Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
You told us when you testified, I don't remember what day it was, a while ago, that you were the lead detective in the case, right?
Yes.
And did you, after the incident, go back and review the 911 calls that were made that initially started this incident?
Yes.
Did you go back and review the witness statements that were provided that started this incident?
Yes.
did you go back and review the radio traffic that was collected from all of law enforcement who was responding to this incident?
Yes.
Did you take detailed notes and document it in your 56-page report?
Yes, I did.
Can I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, may we approach?
You may.
All right, so at this time, what was marked for identification as states Z will be admitted as states 25.
Thank you. So I want to start, Detective, with the 911 call. Did you listen to call A, the first 911 call that was given to dispatch?
Yes.
And did it provide a description of the motorcycles that were alleged to be pointing guns at everybody?
Yes.
And what was the description of the motorcycles?
May I refer to my report? Because I know there was 2 different 911 calls.
You may, it's page 21 of the report. Have you had a chance to review it?
Yes, sir.
What color was the description of the motorcycles of people pointing guns at everyone on the street that was given by the first 911 call?
The first 911 call was green.
2 green motorcycles.
2, yes.
Would you agree that Gian Barreto Bayardo was not driving a green motorcycle?
No.
Did you also review the interviews with the victims
Yes.
or the alleged victims of the aggravated assault?
Yes, the body worn cameras, yes.
In other words, a deputy interviewed them about what they observed regarding the aggravated assault. Is that right?
Yes.
And do you recall, and I'm going to refer to your page 24 if you need to, do you recall what the victim, first name Guillermo, reported about the description of the aggravated assault?
May I refer to my report?
Page 24, yes, ma'am. And what was it, or what was the description given of the person riding the motorcycle who had the gun?
He described him to have a motorcycle helmet. It was very distinct that the motorcycle helmet was not a full cover helmet. It was half of a helmet with a mask.
And was Gian Barreto Baerga on the day he was set on fire wearing a half helmet?
No.
Did you also receive yet another description that included the color of the helmet?
Yes.
What was the color of the helmet that was described? And if you need to refer to your report, it's page 52. What was the color of the half helmet that the victim described?
Black.
In your review of all of the statements and audio traffic and 911 calls, did anybody ever describe a motorcyclist with a distinctive red helmet?
No.
And what color was the helmet that Gian Barreto Baerga was wearing?
It was a red helmet.
We've admitted into evidence the radio traffic from that day. Would you agree that the radio traffic discusses multiple motorcycles being involved?
Yes,
Would you agree that there's confusion on the radio traffic amongst the deputies about which bike might or may not have someone who had a firearm?
yes, due to the large amount of motorcycles at that time.
Would you agree that at some point, someone comes on the radio and asks if this is the suspect of the aggravated assault who's being pursued by Star?
Yes,
And what is the response that they get back?
I don't remember the exact wording.
If I were to show you a document, would it help you remember?
Yes,
And if that doesn't satisfy you and you want to go back and listen to it, we can do that. Can I approach her?
You may.
So read it to yourself and see if this helps you remember what came out over the radio. You hear it in red. You now, having reviewed the document, remember what the conversation was over the radio regarding whether or not the person being followed by the helicopter was the suspect of the aggravated assault.
yes,
What was the conversation on the radio?
that they were unsure if that was the exact suspect. However, they had charges on that subject for fleeing.
Do you remember earlier in the radio traffic where there was a description of the suspects that was a totally different race than Jean Prieto Bayarda?
That radio traffic was long.
It was. If I were to show you a document, would it help you remember?
Yes,
If you want to play it, that's fine. Well, you know what? It's on there and it's in an evidence, Judge. We'll save everyone's time. No problem. Did you ever hear anyone, any law enforcement officer who responded to the law go on the radio and attempt to clarify if this was the aggravated assault suspect prior to making contact with him?
I believe I do remember that, yes.
Right? So let me ask a more specific question. Did Deputy David Crawford, after this transmission comes out that there's uncertainty about the aggravated assault, did Deputy David Crawford ever go on the radio and seek certainty about the description of the suspect?
No,
Did you, I believe you testified earlier that you responded to the scene that evening, is that right?
earlier, yes.
And you communicated with the crime scene investigator, correct?
Yes,
You ended up reviewing all of the helicopter footage.
yes.
Was a firearm ever located anywhere near the vicinity or related to Gian Barreto Bayarda?
On scene, there was no firearms found.
Was there ever a firearm discovered that was thrown?
So watching all of the SAR video, there was no firearm indicated that was thrown.
Do you have any evidence whatsoever that Jean Barreto Bayarda ever, or someone matching his description, ever had a firearm that day?
Looking through the SAR video and what we had on scene, there was no evidence of that.
No further questions, right?
Mr. Barber.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Ruiz. You don't have any information about when Deputy Crawford started listening to the radio traffic on that day, do you?
No, sir.
Some of these transmissions were happening very early on, correct?
Yes,
And so somebody who started listening later on, maybe perhaps when Deputy Kafina says, I got the suspect 53 ag, that would have been all they heard, correct?
That could be possible, yes.
Yes, and then if a star helicopter unit is telling deputies, we got the suspect right here, that's the guy, go get him, deputies would be able to rely upon that and to detain that person, correct?
Once it's cleared through the radio that there's charges on a subject, then yes, all deputies who are closest to the subject try to apprehend them.
Now, aggravated assault of firearms is a felony, correct?
Yes,
And fleeing and eluding from a police officer is a felony, correct?
that's correct.
Based on your review of the evidence, would you say there's overwhelming evidence that that suspect was fleeing and eluding from law enforcement?
Yes,
And would you agree that fleeing and eluding, aggravated assault, are the same level as felonies?
they're both felonies.
And they're both third-degree felonies, correct?
Correct.
As law enforcement officers, you are trained that somebody who flees from police poses a danger, correct?
Correct.
And you're trained to respond to that person in a way that assumes that you're going to pose a danger to either yourself or others, correct?
That's correct.
And they are trained to respond to somebody who's a suspect of an aggravated assault in the same manner, correct?
That's correct.
So whether or not Deputy Crawford or any other deputies had gotten the description wrong really is irrelevant if we're trying to determine whether or not they could have taken Break to Bear to the ground in the manner in which they did, correct?
Once the charges are put on and they are felony charges, then yes.
So this entire line of questioning is completely irrelevant because their actions could have been the same under training.
Calls for legal conclusion.
Sustained.
Okay. Based on law enforcement training, there's no difference, no appreciable difference between how a deputy will respond to somebody who's a suspect of fleeing and eluding and somebody who's a suspect of aggravated assault, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Now, when somebody says a half helmet, you've seen motorcycle helmets, correct?
That's correct.
Have you seen the ones where they're completely encased and they have the mask on them?
Yes.
That is a complete full motorcycle helmet, correct?
Correct.
Aaron, my question?
You might.
And you observed that helmet in this case, correct?
Yes.
All right. In this case, this helmet did not have the built-in visor that seals it off, did it?
The seal, no.
No, it had a pair of goggles that went on it, correct?
Goggles, yes.
So it is entirely plausible that somebody could look at that type of motorcycle helmet with goggles and say, that's not completely sealed, that's a half helmet.
Watching the video of the body camera, he was very adamant that it wasn't a full helmet, it was just a half helmet.
Right, very adamant. However, he did not take a picture and send it to you guys, did he?
No, he did not.
Do you agree reasonable people could disagree when giving description on what a half helmet is?
Yes.
Do you agree it's reasonable that some people might consider a helmet that doesn't have the visor, as this one is, as a half helmet?
It's all a matter of opinion.
When a deputy receives information over the radio from their fellow deputies indicating we have identified a suspect, that deputy who receives that information is then lawfully allowed to go and arrest that person, correct?
Yes, once there are charges established.
Based upon the information they receive from the other deputies.
Yes.
They don't have to go and personally confirm whether that suspect matches the description themselves if they're being told by a helicopter unit that this is your guy, go get him, right?
Yes.
Now, there were two different 911 calls, correct?
Yes.
And one of them talked about a green bike, right?
Yes.
The other one talked about a blue and white bike, correct?
That's correct.
And Jean Breito Berga was driving a blue and white bike, right?
Yes.
So all that evidence tells us is that there were multiple people pointing firearms that day, right?
Multiple motorcycles.
Not necessarily that Jean Breito Berga wasn't one of them, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
Anything else, Mr. Williams?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Detective Ruiz.
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything else from the state?
No, Your Honor, state rests its rebuttal.
Okay.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Sure. Members of the jury, at this time, we are going to take about a 10-minute recess. I'm going to have you go back to the jury room. I'll bring you back at 10 after 5.
Jury's exiting.
I'll give you a chance to sit down.
Before he does, Judge, I was just going to say, I had a chance to discuss with him. He is going to testify. Would you prefer him to go ahead and get the box before the jury gets here?
I do want to discuss something first, though.
Of course.
Okay? So, just while we've been on the break, I was looking at some case law, and I'll just cite for the record, it's Purefoy v. State, 880 Southern 2nd, 822, which is a first DC case regarding rebuttal testimony. So, as stated in the case, the testimony is admissible in Florida to refute new testimony which is brought out by the state's rebuttal witness. All right, so it's within the discretion of the court to allow it. And as in this case that I'm referring to, the court was reversed because the case was highly contested with contradicting testimony and evidence. So I am allowing this rebuttal testimony. However, it is limited to the new testimony that was brought out by the state's rebuttal witness. Do you understand?
We totally understand. It's going to be extremely limited, Judge. It's only going to take a minute or two, a couple minutes.
I'm not worried about the time. I'm worried about the scope.
Right, yeah, the scope. It's just on the issues that they raised, Judge. Very limited.
Just want to make sure we're clear.
So the scope is the communications and the victim testimony. Because that's what Detective Ruiz testified.
The descriptions, the radio chatter, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, we're limiting it to that, Judge.
Okay.
Okay.
Put in the box, Judge?
Yes,
please.
yeah. Specifically, I'd asked her, do you know when Deputy Crawford started listening? That's all established, when he's got in on that radio traffic.
But I just want to make sure that we're clear. It's not to re-go over his prior testimony.
Absolutely not. I do not want to do that, Judge. Oh, do we got to see the box up there? No, it's just past the left. Your Honor, may I approach?
Of course.
Thank you.
I think we are ready to go ahead then and bring the jury. Mr. Barber, you may proceed with your civil level.
Thank you, Your Honor. Deputy Crawford, you just heard the testimony that was elicited from Detective Ruiz
Yes.
concerning descriptions and 911 calls and radio chatter.
Yes.
Immediately prior to you starting to listen to the radio traffic in this case, so we're talking about back on the February 27, 2022, what were you doing?
At the time I was in our K-9 unit, and I was getting my dog out of the patrol vehicle. I was putting on her harness, and I was giving her a break prior to starting a training track with her.
When you were training your canine, are you paying attention to the radio?
I'm not focused on my dog.
Now, were there other deputies with you?
Yes.
Okay, did they have their radios with them?
Yes, they did.
In that sort of situation, are you relying on them to alert you if there's an emergency?
Yes, I am.
So at that time, you're training your dog, you're not really listening to the radio.
Correct.
Now, when you finished with your dog, what did you do?
After I put her back into the patrol vehicle, I got into the patrol vehicle.
And what is the first radio transmissions that you heard when you got back in your vehicle?
I heard that Deputy Kofinas had located a aggravated assault suspect.
And is that when we've heard testimony earlier that he had referred to that as the 53 ag, right?
Correct.
The 53 meaning assault
Correct.
and the ag meaning aggravated.
Correct.
And he was referring to, he had located the suspect with aggravated assault. And that is the first thing you heard.
Yes.
So you personally did not hear all the descriptions about race and color that were given early on, like the green motorcycle, things like that.
No.
You were relying on other deputies, your colleagues, right?
Correct.
And you were relying on Deputy Kofinas telling you that he located the suspect with aggravated assault.
Correct.
And you were relying on the STAR unit directing you to that specific suspect at that exact pump where you found him.
Correct.
And they told you to arrest that suspect.
Yes.
And they told you he was the suspect in aggravated assault.
Yes.
And they told you he had fled from Deputy Kofinas.
Yes.
And you, as a law enforcement officer, are trained to rely on your fellow deputies informing you when they found the suspect.
Correct.
And so it is when you are informed by your fellow law enforcement officers that they have located a criminal suspect, at that time, are you obligated to go back and do your own investigation from the beginning?
Objection, scope, asked and answered.
Same.
At the time when you receive that information, do you have a lawful duty to arrest that suspect?
Objection, scope, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Okay, well, nothing further, Judge.
Mr. Warren?
Thank you. I just want to make sure I understand. When you were on stand earlier today, you had a long discussion about the radio traffic with your attorney in front of the jury, right?
Correct.
And then I asked you about it.
Correct.
And it never dawned on you to tell the members of the jury you didn't hear the whole thing.
That wasn't asked of me.
Oh, so we only get answers if we ask this specific question. Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, sir.
All right, so what happened was you just didn't mention it, and then you heard the testimony in the courtroom, and then you came up and told us. Just want to make sure I understand.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have a question.
Anything else, Mr. Barber?
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes.